Is it rolling, Bob? I think it was the great New England poet Robert Frost who said that good fences make good neighbors. I wanted to take you on a tour today of one of the more interesting features of my property in north central Massachusetts, town of Royalston, and that's this old stone wall. Maybe you can see the chipmunk up there who resides within. Anyway, this stone wall is of some interest to me, anyway. It's on the property for the most part, but not strictly, and it certainly has no direct bearing on a modern property line. I think those are all just superimposed over the existing landscape and features. And I think this stone wall is probably very old. One is, as I like to tease youngsters, I said, why would anybody come out here in the middle of the woods and build these walls that crisscross New England, millions of miles of them, I think. And of course, nobody did come out here in the woods and build these walls. They were built by farmers after they settled the land, after Europeans arrived. And I think this stone wall is probably very old, perhaps as much as 200 years. Here's some of my thinking. I mean, Europeans have been here for hundreds of years now on the east coast of the U.S. And right there is a stump, probably a red oak from a harvest that happened maybe 40, 50 years ago. It's badly decayed, obviously, but it's not ancient. But these trees that were cut down in here at that time had to be, I'd say, at least 100 years old. Big oaks, other species. And so that puts this woods here at least 150 years old, and maybe even older than that. All the trees we see here now, for the most part, I think date from 40, 50 years ago when this was heavily cut over, and small trees or poor trees were left behind and new seedlings and sprouts came in. Another feature of this wall is that it's pretty crude. Seems like it was built in a hurry without a whole lot of care, probably because these people were busy trying to survive and get the land producing something and just needed to get these stones out of the way. And that raises another question. Why did they have to move the stones? If you look at the topography here, I don't know if it shows up, but there's a big stump, badly decayed, but a lot of pit and mound topography. Little mounds and little hollows where trees have fallen, blown over throughout history. And when a tree falls down, the roots tear up a lot of soil, and in time when the roots and the tree decompose, a mound is left behind. And so this is very rugged topography in here on the micro scale. And that tells me that this was either not plowed for row crops of any kind, or and it was used for pasture, or it's so old that the pit and mound topography developed after it was abandoned a couple hundred years ago. I can't, that I have no way of knowing, but why somebody would build these walls in a pasture, I'm not sure. Clearly the grazing animals didn't care. Unless it comes from the 1830s, there was a kind of a bubble of merino wool production. A little experiment there I'm trying with beech tree control. That's an aside. But if this farmer here was trying to graze sheep on this land, maybe he was trying to control his sheep with these walls. Here's our little chipmunk. Cute little guys. Pretty common around here. They make a loud popping, chirping noise that sometimes sounds a little bit like a bird. But in time you'll learn the difference. Hey, little guy. Hey, there he goes. They love these walls. Probably has a big stash of acorns in there somewhere. But anyway, this is my wall. I don't mess with it. I don't want to steal any stones from it or change it in any way, since it's historically significant to me, if no one else. Out here in the middle of the woods. Probably be here for another 1,000 years if nobody messes with it. And that's not likely, I hope, because this woodlot here that I own is under protection. It has a conservation forestry management restriction, so it can't be developed. And certainly as long as I own it, nobody's going to mess with this wall. I don't know, maybe you can see the black flies zooming around. It's daytime again. I spent the night here last night. Black flies go quiet in the cool of the evening and overnight, but as soon as it warms up in the daytime, it's approaching noon now, they are back out. And with that, I will say thank you once again for joining in, and be well.